Attend to me, O adventurers. Over many leagues have you travelled in answer to my plea for aid. Now it is my duty to tell you of the magnificent quest which lies ahead. Chaos rules now. All is in flux. No order at all remains. Beasts and evil spirits from far and wide have descended upon the city, now a dangerous and lost place. Its citizens are unaware of the chaos which has started to spread out from the city and will soon cover all this fair land. Learn the ways of the city. Find the clues which will help you solve this riddle. Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. You may remember that back when we were celebrating reaching 14,000 subscribers on the channel, I did a special video listing some of my Grail games. Those games that I have wanted for a long time, but which are generally the sort of games that are either hard to find or hard to afford. Following that video, several of my lovely subscribers donated copies of some of the games from the list for me to cover on the channel, and one of those subscribers is Lance, better known as Spooktergeist, a very talented artist and the mind behind the online comic strip The Focus. I'll link to all his great stuff in the video description, it's well worth checking out. Lance had in his possession a copy of City of Chaos which he was prepared to send in, and what an absolute treat this is. I was going to start this video by saying City of Chaos isn't all that old, but then I checked and realised it was published in 1996 and is nearly 28 years old, and then I had to drink a bottle of wine and have a little lie down. But yes, it's a little long in the tooth these days, and it certainly shows its age, but it has a cult following and is fondly remembered. So much so there are plans for a revised edition. Ares Games are helming the new edition. Unfortunately, the project seemed to stall for a considerable time. It felt like years. But this new edition is still on the cards, and sometimes some new art pops up online for it. But we aren't talking about any future edition. This here is the classic, the OG, the original, slightly unsettling City of Chaos. This game wasn't a mainstream release. It's a little indie masterpiece really. The first game from UK company Monocle Games Limited, put together by someone with a dream and almost certainly less money than they would have liked to make that dream a reality. And that shows in the haphazard tone, the mismatched components, the clip art fonts, the bizarre characters and more. And yet, that doesn't make the game feel cheap, unfinished or poorly executed. It makes it feel special. The style is absolutely perfect. The game oozes chaos from the second you open the box. I think for a lot of people, when they think of City of Chaos, the first thing they are going to picture are these 6 character pieces. These are spectacular pewter miniatures, and I couldn't resist painting them as soon as I had them in my possession. I put on hold every other painting project to get colour on these slightly demented, deeply unsettling, incredibly funny little caricatures. Now, you don't really have unique characters in this game. Everybody begins as homogenised, uninteresting heroes with no skills or powers, just waiting to be imprinted with the madness of the titular city. They are blank slates that you gradually fill with a bizarre, unravelling narrative derived from their experiences. After all, this is not a story about what you bring into the city. It's a story of what the city brings out of you. Over time you will join different guilds, gaining skills that will aid you on your quest, and each of the character pieces represents one of those guilds. As you can join multiple guilds and several characters can be in the same guild, it really doesn't matter which piece you play as. Just pick the one that gives you the least nightmares. There is the pneumologist who can use his breath as a weapon. I've known a few people like that over the years. There is the pugilist who looks like an old-time Cockney street fighter from a Guy Ritchie movie. There is the pyrotechnic, master of fireworks, absolutely not an arsonist. The brother thief, master of the 5-finger discount. The duelist, who has a secret, he is not actually left-handed. And then my favourite, the somatologist, the new wave hippie with the powers of a pacifist. There are also 2 guilds for which there is no matching miniature. Boo! The Magi, your classic spellcaster, and the Mesmerist, who can mesmerise enemies and influence other characters. Also, I just wanted to show you a little bonus I got in my copy, a super limited edition Bert. This is one of Spooktergeist's own creations. I absolutely love this little chap. I want to paint him, but I don't want to remove him from the hand-inked packaging either. The game itself is incredibly simple to play. The rules book seems quite substantial at first until you realise it contains all the stats for the enemies. The actual rules are no more than 8 pages total. It's the sort of rule set you skim through once and instantly internalise, making games pretty smooth to play, which is a relief because this is a game that can go on for quite some time, and that makes it essential that turns should move along as quickly as possible with little or no rules referencing. The idea behind the game is no more complex than rocking up at the city gates and then exploring to see what happens. The more you explore, the more you will learn about the city, and eventually you will uncover an objective that you can complete. There are multiple objectives to discover and therefore multiple ways to win. Failing that, you can call time, and tot up points players have acquired through finding clues and levelling up to determine a winner that way. On your turn, you roll a d8 for movement and wander around the streets. If you reach the edge of your current map tile, you draw a new tile from the stack and place it accordingly, and then continue on your way. Normally, you must move the full distance rolled. When you finish moving, if you are in the streets of a tile that is otherwise unoccupied, you draw an action card. These cards, in conjunction with a book called the Tome of Chaos, bring the city to life. If you are lucky, you may find an item, like this cheese wire. If you've ever fancied sawing someone's head off, this is the weapon for you, and that's something I never thought I would say on this channel. This card is a purse. The card says you have to roll the Cube of Chaos. The cube is a d6 with 3 different symbols on it. Just roll it to generate one of 3 different results. I look forward to finding many empty purses on my travels. This card is an event. You have stumbled upon a travelling judge who intends to hang a thief. You now have a choice. Save the thief or watch with the rest of the mob. To see what happens, you flick to the indicated section of the Tome of Chaos. You read the paragraph, follow the instructions, and then the game continues. Look at Monocle Games, ripping off Warhammer Quest Cursed City over 2 decades before Cursed City came out. Outrageous. Oh, and I'm not going to spoil this encounter with the judge for you. He seemed friendly though. When you draw action cards, you may also have a chance to interact with NPCs. Here I have found a vampire. If I want, I can interact with him. To do this, I have to decide if I want to greet him, help him, or threaten him. Then I have to roll the Cube of Chaos, which will give me one of 3 results. Next, I refer to the correct interaction tables in the Tome of Chaos for the vampire, which will tell me which paragraph to read. So, let's say I decide to greet the vampire. I roll the dice and refer to the vampire entry on the greet table. I rolled the star, which means I have to go to paragraph 268. And... oh, that's interesting. Maybe now would be a good time to talk about fighting. Combat is entirely card-based. You have a hand of 6 cards, each with an attack and defense value. If you are fighting a non-player character, you pick 1 card and play it face up on the table, and then you draw the top card from the opponent deck and place it flush against your own. You will see the art of the swords and shields lines up nicely, which is a cute touch. You then add any modifiers from weapons and spells you are using. You should refer to the opponent's stat line in the back of the rules to see what special rules they have too. Finally, you simply compare attack and defense. In this example, I have attacked for 7 and defended for 0, while my opponent has attacked for 3 and defended for 3. That means I will lose 3 body points and my opponent will lose 4. If the fight isn't over, we play a second round, and then it's the next player's turn even if the fight didn't end. If at the start of your turn you are still locked in combat, you have the choice to flee. To do this, you and your opponent both roll a d8 for movement. If you roll higher and rolled enough to be able to leave the map tile you are currently on, you escape and move that many spaces. If you fail, the opponent catches you and you are not allowed to play a combat card in the next combat round. There are also rules for fighting multiple enemies, which simply involves pulling a card for each enemy and adding the values together, and then there is also combat against other players, which is exactly the same except both players are choosing a card from their hand. And I would say this combat system is... well, it's a bit weak. It feels like it's giving you choices, but is it really? If your opponent is drawing randomly from a combat deck, you can't really make an informed decision on what card you should play. Okay, the items you have at your disposal may make certain options better or worse, and if you are low on health, you are probably going to play more defensively. But for the most part, it does feel like you are swinging blind. Furthermore, choosing a card from your hand doesn't mean you have to discard it. You could, if you so choose, use the same card over and over again. It just feels a bit lacking. Combat against other players is better. There's a bit of room for bluffing and trying to read your opponent, especially as you will both be using exactly the same hand of cards, but it's still a system that I can't imagine many people would find gripping. But then, this isn't really a game about combat, and it doesn't need anything too heavy to wade through. This is a game about story. It's all about the bigger picture, the sweeping narrative. As you wander around the city, you will also find buildings. There are a few special locations, including some very sus looking towers that I am absolutely sure have nothing to do with this pesky chaos. But most of the locations are mysteries. Only once you step through the doorway and draw a location card will you know what you have found. Is it a pawn shop, a weapon store, a nice pub? I hope it's a nice pub. Or maybe it's one of those mysterious guilds, gifting you with an opportunity to become a member with all the benefits such membership entails. And this is just fun. It's fun. Exploring the city is just layers and layers of fun. You lay a tile, maybe draw an action card, wander into a building to see what's there, you meet NPCs, you find equipment, you interact with stuff, the world expands and it breathes. You start to feel like you are genuinely walking around a city full of life. It's a pleasure just to find out what's around the next bend in the road. At times, your adventuring may feel a little pointless, your goals intangible, but slowly more of the city's dark heart is revealed to you. You start to collect clue cards, each containing a snippet of information. Gradually, you piece the jigsaw together and you start to understand what is happening and what you can do about it. And that's just lovely. I think this whole game is just lovely. Yes, it's a bit clunky. Yes, some of the fonts on the cards is ghastly. Look at those magic cards. Yes, the combat isn't particularly engaging. Yes, some of the rules aren't written clearly. Yes, it has roll to move mechanisms. Yes, the game can go on for a very long time. And yes, the presentation varies dramatically, from that creepy box art to the cartoonish miniatures to the more traditional map tiles. That's all part of the charm. Of course, I'm a sucker for a game that tells a story, and this game is nothing but stories. Weird stories filled with odd characters doing bizarre things. I can't ask for more than that. But that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've liked this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.